You know what, Skelly? Some days are just relaxing. It's like you wake up and the world is telling you what could go wrong. What's that? Oh, you're right. It has been a while since older Emmett has shown up. Well, back to relaxing. Hey. Ah, older Emmett. You're here. What are you wearing? So, what are you up to? Just trying to relax. So you're not busy then. Good. I have something to pose to you. Okay. Go ahead. Imagine you need to stop a nonlinear assassin. Nonlinear assassin? It's an assassin that's not in chronological order. Try to keep up. Anyway, he's going to assassinate someone in a large public gala of sorts. And you need to assassinate him first. Should be simple, right? Wrong! Catch is, this gala has such a strict dress code that there is simply no way to smuggle a weapon inside your jacket. But nevertheless, the assassin must be stopped! So what do? Poison. There's that. Or you can go back in time and have your younger self make you a couple of hidden blades. Hidden blades? You mean like on Assassin's Creed? Exactly like on Assassin's Creed. Well, I'm not sure I can do that for you. Okay, then, how do you explain these? Well, that was much less impressive than I remember. Yeah, I could never quite get the propulsion system right. Darn performance issues. That's no reason to give up, though. I just gotta have these things. May I ask why? Because in order to assassinate an assassin, you need an assassin's weapon. No two ways about it. I've even heard rumors that they have a resistance to all other kinds of attack. I meant why you? Are you really the most qualified person for this? What's your stake? Well, to be honest, it's come to my attention that when I first came to you, I may have led you to believe that I was some kind of a hero. And that's a standard I haven't exactly lived up to. Oh. Well, I mean, you're not that bad. And that's why I've started a business. The Older Emmett Hero Agency. Know any damsels in distress or villagers being oppressed? Here's my card. Okay. Problem is, I'm a bit of a nobody when it comes to all this hero stuff. And my resume does not help the case. Not many people are hopping to hire a man who did time in Santa's workshop for naughtiness. But that is about to change. Imagine you're a client holding out for a hero, scouring resumes, deciding who to hire, when you crack this puppy open and read, bam! Older Emmett. Nonlinear assassin. I think it has a nice ring to it. What do you think? You just like saying assassin, don't you? Assassin. Huh? It doesn't matter. Great! Then we've got a deal. You go make me a couple of hidden blades. No. Did you just say no? I have decided that I don't think I want to make you any more weapons until I can have some assurance that you know how to use them properly. It's a blade. You grab it and go all stabby. What's to know? I would just feel more comfortable if you had some training first. Training? Ha! What do you expect me to do? Track down some old warrior all rusty and retired who's sworn off violence and lives in isolation? Somehow convince him to jump back into the saddle to train me, even though it'll most likely end with him giving his life for my quest? Actually saying that out loud, that doesn't sound too bad. I could have my own mentor. Maybe this is a hero's journey after all. You know what, kid? You've got yourself a deal. I'll track down some old warrior while you prepare the weaponry. Yeah. Okay then. Okay then.
Fun assassin, killing fun for kicks.
Greetings. You're seeing the mic today because I just had the thought that the closer it is to my face, the less editing I'll have to do in post, because I won't have to crank up the volume so much. I talked softly. Except when I don't. Woo! So today I've told myself that I need to make some blades that are hidden and go sticking out of your arm.
I'm as eloquent as an elephant about his head.
As seen on Assassin's Creed and mostly just Assassin's Creed. My experiences with these devices began while absent-mindedly sharpening sticks while watching TV. I did this with nothing but sandpaper and ingenuity. And patience. Okay, maybe I did use a pocket knife. I can't remember. The point is, there was a phase of my life where I was obsessed with sanding things. This was my first prototype. It is a very simple structure. You simply strap it to your arm and press the button. The problem that I found with this, however, is that it doesn't extend very far. And it's just really clunky, but it's a prototype. It's not the end result. To solve the blade length problem, I made a couple of longer blades that I thought maybe I could just make the whole thing bigger, but then the more I thought about it, the more didn't think that would work. Because how much blade can I really hide on my arm? It's not really gonna solve my problem, it's just gonna make the whole contraption clunkier. But then, upon closer inspection of some pictures, I realized that there's actually two telescopisms. So I made something like this. And design-wise, there's nothing wrong with this. It compacts into a pretty small device and extends fairly cleanly when the rubber bands are intact. And that's the biggest issue. I never really have been able to find the right elastic device. The rubber bands that I'm using there are the kind that the dentist gives you when you have braces, because I had braces a few years back, and so I had a bunch of packets of those little rubber bands that you hook on your teeth. The first ones I used were some thicker ones that I would loop together and hook on these hooks like hook and eyes. And those worked pretty well, but they just kept breaking. And after a while I ran out of them and had to use these thinner ones, which I would double up, but they would still break. Except I was using two of them, so they would go twice as fast. I do have some left over, so I could use them in a pinch, but I'm going to explore my options when I get there. I was pretty satisfied with this one for a while, I just never got around to making an official version, and then all my rubber bands broke, so I got kind of disheartened. More recently, I tried to construct a more complicated take on it. I tried to use super glue for it, but sometimes I get really frustrated with super glue. And basically the main idea behind this one was, instead of having 3 bands that connect separately, I had like a pulley system that just was connected by one string that like looped around, and when it was pulled tight it would pull it out like this, and then when you collapsed it then it would, well, I guess maybe that would pull the string tight. I don't know. It was really complicated. Somehow I figured out how to construct it. Basically the idea was I just wanted one spring that was connected to the wire that would pull everything out. And this thing essentially just imploded. The pulley system just kind of pulled everything in on itself, and maybe it could have worked with the right spring, but basically I feel like this is the most efficient design. Anything more complicated than this is just kind of unnecessary. During this period of not knowing for sure what direction to go, I watched some YouTube tutorials and things like that, and realized I had the right idea. Just for some reason, technical things never work out for me. But that's why I keep practicing. Because it could just be that I need to find the right rubber bands too, and just get used to replacing them. Either way, that's a ways down the road. First, I need to make the thing. Okay, so first I'm going to go ahead and cut these down to sharpen them. That's the trouble with doing this with scissors. Sometimes they fracture. But these come in very large packs, so it's no real problem. Now I just need to do a lot of sanding until they look sort of like that. Next, I need to build a box around it. I'm gonna go ahead and use hot glue for this. I could use super glue, but super glue and I kind of have bad blood. If it works, it really works, but hot glue is just simple, man. It's easy. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that is the essential structure that I'm going for. This will pull out and stop there, theoretically. And then this will pull out and stop there. Right now it's still a little bit loose because I wanted to make sure I would have room for all of the connectors and springs or elastic or whatever I use. So yeah, once I get all that rigged up, I can work on refining it.
So you want to be an assassin?
Yes, sir, I do. And I must say, I appreciate you for training me.
Well, if an old crusty warrior won't come out of retirement to train a young stud like you, then who will he do it for?
Well,
you are a most exceptional young man. Heroic potential off the wazoo.
Wow! You know, I always felt there was something special in here. Yeah, if only St. Nick could see me now.
But being an assassin is no picnic. It requires months of rigorous training, and most importantly, a hood.
Aha!
You come prepared, good man. Now are you ready for your training to begin?
Absolutely.
Good. Look out! Guards at 10:15! Jump into that bush!
Guards? What guards?
The guards are hypothetical, but that bush is not. Now jump to cover!
That bush? But that's a prickly bush. I could get thorns in my buttocks.
And a thorn is better than a bullet. Now jump. If you want to be an assassin, you need to act fast and do as you're told.
Okay.
So if I say jump, you jump. Now jump into that bush. Hey, where'd he go? Dadgummit. Another pupil vanished. I'd better write up another ad for the newspaper.
Another pupil? We've been hiding in this bush for years, and he still hasn't found us. Have a berry. Okay. So, I went to the store and got some springy dinghies. And there are a few things that occurred to me along the way. While I perused the spring selection, I kept remembering my history with springs. They're similar to super glue. I'm sure that they work if you use them right. I just haven't had the best luck. It seems like most of the time whenever I need a spring to stretch, it never stretches. It always just sticks. That's not what springs are supposed to do, right? It's probably just that I'm expecting too much from them. So, I realized that as long as I need it to stretch, the spring would have to be so big that it would have to be really big, even compacted, in order to stretch the length that it needs to. I wasn't sure if springs were gonna work, until I realized, why am I concentrating so much on pulling strings when I could get springs that push it? So I got some pushing springs. Springs that push.
Very good. Push. Push.
And I got a lot of them, because I'm going to need a lot of them. For example, in this metal section, I'm going to place 2 in there, sort of like that. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of half close up this box so that the springs don't buckle and pop out. And I'm going to glue something on the underside of that cardstock so that this isn't quite as floppy. I also added a little stub here so that the spring would have something to grab onto a little bit more. Okay, this is actually working out better than I was expecting. Whoa! Whoops. Okay, well, I don't have to worry about there not being enough power. Okay. Okay, so a little bit of a hazard warning. I was experimenting with how to lock the springs in place, because if I glue something on the back of here, then I won't be able to take the blade out when I need to paint it. So I was just doing some tests. I thought maybe I could work with how it ended up that, like, it'll stop the springs from coming out, but they can kind of be snapped in there. But yeah, I was testing that out, and I had both springs in there, and I was tightening it up and stuff like that. And one of them buckled and popped out and hit me, like, right on the bony ridge of my eye socket. So I'm not, like, hurt. My eye's fine. It was kind of watery for a little bit, but I just realized that that was a danger, so... And now I don't know where the spring went. So I had to do a lot of tinkering. I went through several different variations. At one point I had a hook and eye glued at the back so that it could catch on the spring. And it did catch the spring, but it still just kept buckling up over the hook. But it turns out that basically the simplest option is the best so far. I just put on some extra planks on the back here, put a piece over it, and there's still enough room for the blade piece to slip out, and then I can still snap the spring into the front, slide it back, and then it stops. It still buckles up a little bit. I actually have some foam strips that I'd been wedging down in there to kind of fill in some of that space, and that seems to be working. It's not perfect, but it's close enough for me to move on to basically just solving the same problem, but for this piece. So, I'm starting to get a little bit desperate. These springs just keep giving me trouble. I really wanted to use springs because I thought they would be more powerful and more reliable and be more like an actual contraption instead of just like a craft with rubber bands. Thought it would look cleaner, I suppose. They just keep giving me trouble. I could keep tinkering with it like I did with the middle section and try to figure it out, because I do think I figured something out for the middle section, and I'm gonna keep that one with the springs the way it is. But I do have a tendency to overcomplicate things for myself by trying to go too advanced too quickly. So I'm probably just gonna go ahead and go back to rubber bands, because it's what I know will work, even if I think it looks a little cheesy. So the rubber bands seem to be working. But now that I don't need to worry about the springs getting all bunched up back here, I don't really need all this extra space. So I'm going to cut that off and then attach the clasp that will hook onto that thing when it's drawn back. Except now I realize that if it can hook on to that, it will probably catch on the spring. I guess if I'm gonna rig up a line to my finger so that I can pull it and unhook the clasp, then I should just be able to hold it open, and then that'll give it enough time to spring forward.
Come on, baby. Don't just chirp. You have to make a guest appearance. You chirp and you get filmed. That's the deal. Come again.
Zippy. Hello. I'm making a hidden blade, Zippy. Say hello to the camera, Zippy. You don't even know that the camera's there, do you? She's like, what is this thing?
that has some power. So originally, I was gonna cover this whole thing with a casing, but I didn't really think about that when I made this clasp. So I'm gonna see, this isn't the piece I'm gonna use, but I'm gonna see about just putting a little piece of cardstock over there to see if that is enough to guide it through. Whoops. Well, already made a whoopsie with that. Maybe a little too powerful? First, this tab kind of broke, and so this just went shooting out. And then when I was trying to put it back in, I realized that with the paper there, I can't take it out and put it back in if I need to paint it and such. So, my idea now is to use these large hook and eyes. I'm gonna have to open them up, sort of like that. And I'm gonna make some sort of covering that can snap on there. I'm almost a little bit scared. Huh. Okay, that seems to be working. Now I just have to copy it over onto this one. So now that we're up on this conveniently placed rooftop, what's the mission?
You see that gate?
That gate right there?
Yes, the one we are looking at.
The gate that's guarded by all the guards, with all the guards guarding the gate?
We need to get past that gate.
The gate with the guards.
That's right, the guarded gate.
So how do we do that?
I'm glad you asked. It is a tricky operation, and we just might be able to pull it off. First, however, I need to make sure you're up to the task.
Oh, yeah, I'm in.
Glad to hear it.
So what do we do?
First, we hire some prostitutes.
Okay, I'm out.
Hey, you get back here. It's not what you think.
So what is it then?
We need to get some scantily clad women to dance in front of the guards.
As a distraction?
As a distraction.
Oh, okay. So while the sexy ladies dance off with the guards in one direction, we sneak in the other way.
That is 112.5% wrong.
What?
We're going to stand smack dab in the middle of them.
But why would we do that, though?
Because as the book of pure logic dictates, if a man in an armored hood stands in the middle of a group of dancing prostitutes, no one will notice him.
Can't really argue with that logic.
That's exactly what I thought when I wrote it.
It's going well. Or at least that's what I keep telling myself. So I think it's time that I face some faults with my design. I am probably sounding repetitive by now, but I keep encountering issues and then doing a lot of problem solving and thinking that it's fine, but then encountering more issues. Basically, I feel like with all my tinkering, I've never really solved any problems. I've just sort of pushed them to the back, and now they've all kind of gathered in the back. Mostly just when this thing is pushed back, which is really hard to do because both the springs and the rubber bands have so much tension on them. Well, there's so much tension, it actually kind of pulls itself apart when it releases. And the latch system doesn't really work. It always wants to jump out of the rail. And I need both hands. I guess if it was strapped to my arm, then maybe that'd hold it secure and I'd be able to push this down. But, like, I'd have to push this down. My little flappy door didn't really work. I'd have to push it down just with one hand and then manually latch it closed because of the way the springs get in the way. I still like this. I'm not gonna say that it's a failure. I just think I've overcomplicated things for myself. You see, throughout this entire process, pretty much every step of the way, I kept thinking, you know what? Maybe rubber bands would be more effective. Nah, springs will be better. Maybe rubber bands would be simpler. Nah, springs are more powerful. The springs are creating a problem that wouldn't be there if I had rubber bands. But I don't need to think about that. Springs are just more professional looking. Maybe I should just make life easier on myself and use rubber bands. No! You can't do that to yourself! Springs are better! You promised! My mirror is talking to me.
And when my mirror speaks, it never minces words, 'cause these eyes don't shine half as bright.
And so, I think I'm going to need to face the reality that maybe springs aren't better. And so, if you are like me, you're probably wondering, because I began to wonder this, why do I not want to use rubber bands? Because even doing this, I felt like I was somehow like relapsing or reneging on a promise or something like that. Like, I did not want to use rubber bands. And then once I did, I was just like, great, rubber bands. This thing is a much simpler design. This is really straightforward. Why didn't I just copy this? And just to get it out of the way for a final time, I do think springs would work if the whole system was designed for them. But for what I'm doing, because my intention was just to keep the mechanics simple and focus on the customization, I think I just need to stick to that. If I'm going to use the springs, I think I would need to commit and go for more of a finely tuned mechanical design. And it's just not necessary for a quick craft comprised of popsicle sticks and glue. So, why am I so torn when it comes to rubber bands? Thinking about this has kind of caused me to realize something about myself. It had always been there in the back of my head, I had just never really confronted it until now. You see, I kind of have a fear of copying people, even though I always copy people. Like, I don't know why there's a difference between like making stuff like this. This is a design that I just copied directly. It's not that I'm not creative enough to come up with my own stuff. It's just easier to focus when someone else already created the design, and so I just need to point at that and copy it. But I guess there's a difference between copying a design and copying what I'm actually doing. Because I'm pretty sure when I made this thing, this was my own idea. I was just doing what I thought was simple. And then afterwards, I looked for YouTube tutorials to see if there was any better way of doing it, and I found that really there's not. This is the basic premise that most people do. And so, on one hand, I looked at those tutorials like, hey, they had a good idea, and I had a good idea. Cool. But then on the other hand, I was also like, hey, they had a good idea. And it's their idea, which means I can't use it anymore. Which is totally backwards, because, I think most of the tutorials that I watched were the kind where there's just music and hands doing stuff, and there's no talking and instruction, you're just watching. But most people who do have words will make comments about, like, oh, hey, if you like this, go ahead and try it out on your own, and stuff like that. That's the whole point of a YouTube tutorial. It's, hey, I know how to do this, I'm sharing it with you. That's what I like to do. Even though I don't consider myself really a professional enough to say, you should follow me directly. If you want to, you can, but I'm probably not doing it the best way possible. But yeah, for some reason that's been a thing with me, that whenever I'm following a tutorial, I usually want to tweak things. Like, I don't want to do it exactly the same, or I want to, try my own way. I want to take the idea or the design, but then do my own thing with it, sort of. And I'm beginning to realize that's a bit of a pride issue, because I think a part of me wants bragging rights, I guess, like, I can say, hey, this is something I did. If I'm just copying someone directly, like all of their methods and materials and stuff like that, then I always feel like, was it really me? And that's really weird to think about. I guess it's good to admit that I have faults, because I usually think of myself as a humble person, and then now I'm realizing, oh wait, no, I have pride, I have some issues I'm dealing with. Or I could just blame my brother, because I am pretty sure that this could have something to do with my fear of getting beat up if I copied my brothers. I mean, they never would actually beat me up, but they would get angry. One of them mostly. Which, that is kind of one of those kind of funny things to look back on in life. Because at the time, I always thought he was being kind of like the mean older brother. Because my mindset as a little kid was, together, my brothers are good at pretty much everything. So if I can't copy them, what am I supposed to do? Just suck? But then as I got older, I began to realize that we were pretty competitive. So maybe declaring that I can't do what they're doing is actually a way of nipping it in the bud, nipping the competition in the bud, so that it didn't become a test of quality and manhood to see who can be better, even though I'm sure they were still probably better at me than everything. Didn't stop me from being competitive though. But yeah, I've always seen the blaming your upbringing for your problems as kind of the cheap way out. So, I should take my own criticism and own up to my faults. And just go ahead and stick with the simple route, even if it is what other people have done. And I'll be humble and say that I'm just copying what I know. It kind of reminds me of one of my first videos. You know, making these videos is just kind of reminding me how much of an amateur I am. Which basically leads me to conclude that maybe this channel shouldn't be a how-to enter DIY project here, and more of just a general documentation of my creative hijinks. So if you want to join in the hijinks, you know what to do. So thank you for indulging me in this time of self-reflection. So moving forward, I'm not going to consider this a failure, because it's not. It works. I'm just going to think of it as I'm exploring my options. I'm going to create 2 tests and just see which one's more effective. If these somehow are the better ones, I will continue with these. If they're the better ones because I'm doing it the simple way and not overcomplicating things for myself, then I will go with them. That's the good thing about the internet and having contact with other people. You can learn from their mistakes. If some people know that they know what works, might be a good idea to take their advice. So this is what I have so far of the redesign. There's a channel in here so that I'm gonna put the hook on the base of this, and then I can slide it in. And since there's no springs to worry about, I don't need to have anything on the base. I can just hook a rubber band from there to there, and that will pull it up. But yeah, so I super glued this, and I'm planning on dremeling down these edges flush, but I'm filming this at night, and I don't want to wake up my family with a lot of buzz sawing. Well, not buzz sawing. Buzz drumming. Dremel noises. But even with those extra chunks sticking out, this is already a lot lower profile, because like that's pretty far for a hidden blade, because this thing is very flat. That's how somehow managed to be pretty flat. I mean, it's a little wide this way too, but I could have avoided that just by rearranging the sticks that I used. And this may be going back to the pride thing, but I still want to do something slightly different than this prototype, even though this prototype worked. I've already got this glued together, I'm gonna stick with it. Again, if these fail, I can just make a third option. Also, I found out that that is really fun to do, even though it doesn't stay there. And it didn't work that time. Like, I don't even need springs. If I just rigged up a way for it to go like, and then stay there, I could just keep these around as fun little knives. Or rig up a way so that it's just this one section that can spring up, like it's like almost like a switchblade. Or not almost like a switchblade, that's probably what... Maybe that's not what a switchblade is. Is a switchblade the ones that just go... And like if you're like a beatnik, that you're like...
Hold it wrong, son. Not like this. You always do it like this. Smooth.
Or a switchblade, like... Do they, like, swing out? I don't know. I assume that's what a switchblade is. Yeah. Okay. Well. That was the design I had scrapped. So this is louder than I was expecting. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I have made with nothing but popsicle sticks and super glue. Just look at these things. Which one would you rather try to conceal under your sleeve? And yeah, this one, which is the one that I got the farthest on, I'm still going to keep in the prototype box. But the secondary one, I actually had to harvest for parts because I ran out of hooks for the rubber bands. And I don't even know what I'm gonna do with all the eyes that I have left over. I mostly use hooks. One of these days I'm gonna need a lot of eyes, at least I hope, because I have a lot of them. I even went back to using the dental rubber bands, because I thought I just had one package, but I actually have 3. So if they break, it doesn't really matter, because I can just replace them. And since this one is slightly bigger than my first working prototype, and since these did break quite a bit, I looped together 3 rubber bands rather than just 2, and still doubled them up. And then yeah, this feels like it has plenty of power. Just the right amount of power, because the springs and these thicker rubber bands on this one were a little bit excessive. I don't think it needs quite that much power. I think that's why it broke. Yeah. With this one, since I can't really do much with it, I tried to repair it so that I could keep doing the flicky thing, but it just broke again, so I'm thinking I may just glue it like that and use it as a knife. Just to do something with it, so that it's not lonely and forgotten. But yeah, I'm happy with these. I'm glad I made this decision. And the last part I need to do is figure out the trigger system. For the trigger, I'm gonna go back to kind of what I did with my first one and cut it out of a popsicle stick. And since these have a tendency to fracture when I try to cut them with nippers or scissors, I'm going to use the cutoff saw on the Dremel. I wonder if that could potentially be an issue. The way I did have it, since there's 2 rubber bands on this one and 1 on here, well, 2 pairs and then 1 pair, the middle section didn't want to pull back as far, and so now I took one of the bands off of this side and put it on the first one, and then that pulls back a little bit more evenly. Maybe I just need 3 on the front and then 2 on these, and then that'll... Whoa! And then that'll make the hook fall off. Time for more repairs. So while that one is soaking in super glue, I will figure out how to rig up this thing. So I carved them out and drilled a little hole there. The second one broke during this process, but I don't think that should be too big of an issue because I can just switch up how I was originally going to attach it, which means just for symmetry I may go ahead and nip off the bottom of this one. Now I'm planning on figuring out a way of rigging it onto a string so that I can just flick my fingers and pull this up. But there's some things I want to do first, because I want the string to loop onto this, then come through there so that I can tie it to my finger. But then this is going to be glued to the sock. So I'm going to make a trench for it to slide through. That also brings to mind, it's actually a good thing that this is so far back, because that way I can still sneak this past it so that I can take it apart to paint it and such. I keep forgetting that. I keep wanting to just build it, but I want to be able to take it apart to paint each piece separately. So that's something to keep in mind. Hot! Okay, so I don't know how much of that the camera caught, but a tip. If you need to wipe away a lot of hot glue, you can lick your finger and then it won't hurt as much. Hopefully this won't hurt either. That's warm. That's quite warm. But not necessarily painful. So I realized that I should probably go ahead and put a rubber band around there. And I think that is something that I can do with some of the eyes that I was talking about. Okay, let's try that again. Okay. Some kinks to work out, but that seems to be working fine. So another hook got torn off. Hopefully that won't become a regular thing. I think it was because, if you look at this one, it stuck out a little too far because it was the other one. But this equivalent hook, and that one kind of was out into the middle rail section here. So I think what happened was, since when you pull this back, the middle section kind of wants to pull further than this section. I'm pretty sure when it flicked out, it got caught on the hook, and that's kind of what popped it off. So, tied a loop onto that, and then I'm going to feed this through, theoretically. What? Okay, there we go. You need to pull quite hard on it. I guess I could move that up the trigger a little bit, and that would give you more leverage. And I guess it's good that it doesn't have a hair trigger. Okay, so I glued the string to the very tip of the triggering mechanism, and then if I wind the string tight around my finger, and then hold on to the back. There we go. So if I just pull on it like that, it's hard to bring it up. But then if I hold something back a little bit, then that provides a little bit more leverage, I guess. So that's what I'm gonna build, that type of thing. So this is gonna sound repetitive, but while I was fiddling with that, another hook popped off. So I re-glued it, and even though I don't know if this will work, because I still assume that super glue is stronger than hot glue, I went ahead and put a little dab of hot glue on all of the hooks. Hopefully that'll just stop them from giving way so that the super glue will actually hold. I had the thought that maybe the rubber bands were too strong, which they shouldn't be because these are the weaker ones. But that thought still occurred to me, so I took the extras off of here. And then while I was gluing extra glue onto the hooks, I also went ahead and glued some foam pads in front of these ones so that when it hits these stoppers, it won't hit the hook itself. It'll be cushioned by the foam. So hopefully that should stop them from getting torn off. Those and all the ones I mentioned before seem to have worked. I say that. Oh yeah, and then when I glued the stoppers on there, I also glued a little piece of cardstock up here so that it gets stuck when it gets pulled up, but then it's still loose when it needs to be. Okay, let's try that again. There we go. Then I have these rings that I cut out of some PVC pipe and then sanded down. That works.
Go web. Fly. Up, up, and away, web. Shazam.
I'm just having the darndest of luck here. Anywho, I will give you an up-close look at the action. So now I need to start making the bracers for them. And as to how basic versus ornamental I'm going to make them, well, we'll see. For the bracers, what? Obligatory Flopsy cameo. Meow. Tell the camera how you feel. Oh, you're refusing? You're refusing to speak once I actually tell you to? There you go. So for the bracers, I began by simply gluing a regular piece of foam onto the base of the contraption. This was actually just big enough for my hand to slip through. I only glued it on the front half because the back half split open to allow room for my forearm. And then I just kind of based everything off of there. I noticed that the front did leave a lot of space around my wrist, so I cut a dart out of each side and put some elastic on it so that it pulls that gap closed while I'm wearing it, but will still stretch when I need to put my hand through. I didn't have any real model that I was basing it off of. I was just thinking something Assassin's Creed-like. So I put a foam pad on the top of the arm and then just kind of built up some strips around it to close the gaps. When I felt that I had it decorated enough, I put on some trimming and then moved on to the painting. I made it entirely out of brown foam because I knew I wouldn't have to paint as much that way. Literally all I did was seal it with a clear coat sealer, then give it a dark wash, and then dry brush on a light orangish brown. And that's basically all I had to do to get it looking like leather. After that, I masked out all of the leather parts and spray painted all of the highlights gold. I also painted the blade silver, and here we are now. So yeah, I'm really happy with how that turned out. There's still a couple of finishing touches that I want to make though. First, there are some places where there was some discrepancies with the masking, and there's little gold smudges on the leather. I'm just going to touch them up with a little bit of paint to make it look like the leather's just scuffed or something instead of smeared with gold. And then also, I felt like the underside here was just a little bright. I'm not going to really weather it that much. I just want to dull it down so that it's not quite as noticeable, so that it doesn't look like a toy, I guess. And then I have these decorative E's I cut out, and I'm gonna glue those on there somewhere.
So here we are on the summit of your greatest challenge yet. This is the proving grounds for true assassins. This is the mighty high jump.
That's a lot higher up than I expected.
It's perfectly normal for you to be nervous on your first time, but that's no reason to be afraid. The time comes when every assassin must make the leap of faith.
I'm just a little concerned about the issue of my own mortality.
But it's completely safe. There's a hay cart.
Is there now?
To prove to you that it is harmless, I shall demonstrate.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, wait! I can't let you go through with this.
But why? It's safe. There's a hay cart.
This isn't about that. It's just, I've seen this joke before. You're gonna fall and you're gonna die. Honestly, it's been done to death. Or not to be morbid.
You watch your tongue, for surely you did not hear me when I said there was a hay cart.
That's the whole point. It's not gonna save you.
Blasphemy! Hay carts are miraculous clouds given to man on the wings of angels.
I don't care. I can't have you dying on my watch.
Why not?
Because my training is incomplete. You're my mentor. I kinda need you. Unless, of course, this is a hero's journey, in which case... You know what? I was mistaken. Go right ahead.
Aha! I'm glad to see you've come to your senses. Alrighty then. Eagle vision, activate. Tally up!
Welp. He didn't die. Let's see here. Let me just... Yeah, there it is. Okay. Okay. So now that that's done, I can have some time to relax. You know you need a hood, right? Or a bush. Bushes work too. Right. Well, so, what do you have? Aha. Ooh, gimme. Oh, I like it. This one, not so much. Sometimes the trigger gets out of line. Just scoot it a little bit. Ah, it works when it works. Uh-huh. Well, hey, you were trained, right? Yes, indeedy. Here's my diploma. Don't worry, it's definitely signed. Could I take a look at that? I don't see what good it would do you. You don't know the guy who signed it, let alone what his signature looked like. But don't worry, he signed it. And under his own free will, too. There was even a notary there. Of course, I was the notary. Whoa, hold up. You're a notary? Since when? That can't possibly be the strangest thing you've heard me say. Yeah, that's fair. Well, it's been fun, but there is a nonlinear assassin that needs them assassinating. See you around. Okay, stay safe.
Oh, well, Mr. Nonlinear, you certainly are alright.
Oh, please, you're too kind. Well, I must say, madam, you certainly know how to throw one...
Guess what, Mr. Nonlinear Assassin?
killer party.
You're done about to be out. Assassin.
Oh, well,
Snappy, 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 snappy!
Wait, how do I retract these things? And here we have older Emmett wearing the pinstripe jacket. It is not a full black, but rather a very dark blue, which matches very well with the rest of older Emmett's outfit. And now we have the gray jacket. While the jacket itself is rather nice, it simply doesn't quite gel with the rest of the outfit.
I thought I looked kind of dapper.
You don't not look dapper. It's simply, when I look at you, I think you're a strange little pastor that no church would hire.
I mean, it is technically a pastor's coat.
Well, that explains it then. Move on. Oh great, now he's sulking. And last but not least, we have the black leather jacket. This jacket looks very snappy. The pitch black of the leather mixed with the orange of the hoodie evokes a rather dangerous color scheme. It seems like the type of outfit a mobster would wear, or perhaps a nonlinear assassin. And with that, folks, we have concluded this week's episode of Father's Closet Fashion Show.
Well, if an old crusty warrior won't come out of retirement to train a young stud like you, then what? Who?
Oh boy.
Well, if an old crusty pasty poo. But being an assassin is no picnic. It requires months of rigorous training. Sort of like this voice does! Good. Look out! Guards at 15! If you want to be an assassin, you need to jump. If you want to be an assassin, you need to act fast and do as you're told. So find it. 0.5% wrong, 0.5% wrong, 0.5% wrong. 0.5% wrong!
Oh, that was pretty close to a bad voice.
You're 112.5% wrong. Because as the book of pure logic dictates, if a man in an armored hood stands. Do you see that gate? Glad that you ask. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it.
Okay, I'm out.
Hey! It's perfectly normal to be nervous. It's perfectly normal to be nervous on your first time. But have no reason to be afraid. A time comes in every assassin's life when he needs to make the leap of faith.
I don't know. There comes a time in every assassin's life when he must make a leap of faith.
But it's completely safe. Hark! A hay cart. Blasphemy! 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 Okay, Mr. Nonlinear Assassin. Alright, Mr. Nonlinear Assassin.
With the rest of older Emmett's outfit. Roxy. Yeah, know any damsels in distress or villages being oppressed? This is a really deep pocket. Well, that sounds great. You go make training? Ha! What do you expect me to do? Track down some old warrior all rusty and retired? Who's... Oh, I'm getting lightheaded. Wouldn't be a filming session if you didn't come and interrupt me. You've been pretty quiet. Quiet. Who's that little smudgy baby?